Hey everyone, Joe Menza here, and welcome to this time we're going to be doing loose, maybe not so fast, but for this first episode, loose water miscible oil painting. And I'm set up on my little oil painting box here, and I'm just going to use a fan brush. I'm going to keep this very simple, and I'm going to be using this on this 6x8 canvas panel. And again, I'm going to be using just the fan brush here. I got a few colors laid out. I've got yellow ochre, burnt sienna, white. I'm put a little blue out here. This is French ultramarine. And we'll use a little lemon yellow and some black and some burnt umber. Now these are water miscible. This means you can clean up using water. I have my jar of water, just like I do when I do acrylics and just like I do when I do watercolor. And you just have a little bit of water on your brush and it'll go on very, very smoothly. This is the French ultramarine. We're just making a little sky here. Now I'm grabbing a little yellow ochre, get a light source going here, and just kind of blend that in. Now, the trick here with the oils is that they don't dry for really a few days. Now, you can get faster drying oils with a certain medium in them, but these are the water miscible, and they will take some time to dry. And the good part about that is you can continue to work on them a day or two after and still make changes and move the paint around, because the paint is going to stay wet. So you have to be a little more deliberate with this particular paint. If you're going to put paint, you're going to commit to putting paint on the surface, you'll either have to wipe it off or scrape it off if you want to remove that, or maybe layer on top. You have to go with thinner layers and put thicker layers on top of the thinner layers. So right now I'm using a little, I've got some, what color did I use here? I've got the, let's see, this was the permanent rose and mixed with a little brown. And I want to kind of do a little reddish brown scene here. And then I've got a purpley color in the background, which will be like more for distant trees. And you see here I can take this fan brush, add it with a little brown, and I can make these some more trees here, another layer of trees. So with acrylic, if you're painting and it dries within a few minutes, you can paint right over that. That's not a problem. With watercolor, once you've committed, you'd have to lift it out. Pretty much with watercolor, that's why everyone says it's challenging. You have to be pretty much deliberate, let it sit, and there's no real correcting. You can correct, but it's a little more challenging in that medium. This here, you can continue to blend and move paint. But if you really want to redo a spot, you have to either take a paper towel and kind of rub it, clean it off, or take a palette knife and scrape off the paint that you have there. So here I'm using a little blue, brown, and I'm just putting in, I put a little water, a little body of water in there, little pond of some sort. I'm just trying to get down into the crack there. Now this is my Yugo. This is my Yugo pochade box. And this one has a nice sort of a plexiglass type surface for putting paint down on that you can clean off. And then I have a couple of expander pieces on the side that you can put brushes on and things. It's a very nice compact box for taking on the go. And again, I just want to show how much fun, just like with the other mediums, this is something you can enjoy. Now, there is a odor component with oils. There's a, like that linseed oil type smell. If that's something that bothers you, also the cleanup, oil paints tend to, if you're going to wipe it on a towel, they're not going to dry on that towel. Like I always have a sort of an old bath towel next to me. If I wipe those paints off, they're going to stay wet on there for a long time. So there's that aspect. And then, of course, having somewhere to put your paintings while they dry, like having a rack of some sort. Now, these are only 6x8, so you can lay these out somewhere, but that's where a problem comes in, where a little logistical things. Now, the other alternative is, and I will show this in coming videos, is you can use oil paper. It's paper that's designed for oil paint. And I use Arches oil paper. It dries a little faster, absorbs into the paper a little bit more. If you're going to frame it, it's something you'll have to, allow to dry. You can mat them. You could glue them to a hardboard and varnish them. There's a lot of ways you can go with it. But for now, we're just using a canvas panel. And here I'm just trying to put in little grassy areas and things. And you can see how this blends right on the surface as we're going, since we're doing a wet and wet. Now, in theory, you can stop, allow it to dry, and then come back in a few days and continue. Or if you don't feel like finishing now and you still want to be able to blend paint, you can come back the following day and your paint will still be wet and you can still kind of adjust things. So that provides a pro and a con for why you would use this method. Now, why you would use oil paints at all as well, they're very rich, very vibrant. They look very natural when they dry. And I think they look really good. There's a lot to be said about oil paints. I put a little border there. I'm going to put a little bush of something here. I'm just kind of making this up as I go. So you see me rubbing the brush on that towel I have next to me. And then I also have my water jar so I can wash out the paint. And it's nice when you have these little fan brushes because you can just wipe them off on the towel. And by the way, if you are using like little fan brushes like these, you could use regular oil paint that's not water miscible and just kind of wipe off, and not get into the whole odorless thinner aspect. You don't need any thinners with this though. And this is a small piece, so it really calls for a smaller brush. I'm going to take this off and show. These are magnetic holders that move up and down. I just want to get this edge here. And see, just touching the edges of this, you get paint on your fingers and so forth. Like even tomorrow or the next day, you'll still be able to touch it and get paint on your hands. A little more burnt sienna. Just getting sort of like that reddish brown grass. Lightening that area up there. This is just sort of an adjust as you go type medium. It gives you an opportunity to play and kind of move things around and work with the paint. I think that's sort of the more one of the pros of using the oil paint is that you can kind of just manipulate and kind of move paint around and blend and adjust, and it allows you to do a method of loose painting and make up a scene as you go along. And again, if you don't like something, you can take a paper towel and you can wipe the surface and wipe off what you put on there. Now, I did add a little brown in the sky. I kind of wanted to make that a little more. It was too blue. I just kind of wanted to kind of tamp that down a little bit. These are Winsor and Newton, most of them. I think there's one in there that's Daler Rowney. Either one are good, though. The Georgian Daler Rowney or the Winsor and Newton Water Miscible. Both of those sets are good. You can get those online in a set, and fairly inexpensive, I will say. But you tend to go through a little bit more white, so I've had to go and buy, larger tubes of the ones that I use more of. One of the ones I did buy a sap green. I bought white. I bought a Payne's gray. I bought the larger tubes. But you can buy a small set. They almost look like the set of Cotman. And you see here, I've expanded that lake. One of the things I was talking about was, manipulating and adding on. And you can do that here. You can do it with acrylics too, of course. But here you can kind of blend it in. See, I'm putting a little extra on there. Put a little yellow out, or a little blue there. I've got a little bit of yellow here. I want to make a little bit of a green color. But you get to a certain point, if you've put paint on the canvas and you try to put more on top of that, it becomes a little more difficult. Now, they do make a linseed oil that's for water miscible paints. I have some. I don't really see a need to use it. You could probably use it early on and make the paint a little more like a wash, but I haven't really. I think you can just do it like this is fine. I find the less you use, the better of things. I'm going to add a little more to these trees in the background. We'll add a little more detail to them. But I find I don't like adding things if I can avoid it. I don't like adding mediums to paint. I don't like adding linseed oil and all that stuff. I just want to paint, and that's where the fun of the process comes in. I'm trying to make these look a little more like pine trees. If you are a little more of a detailed person, not so much like the watercolor when I do those and I do the fast and loose and I just kind of throw it on and you're done in a few minutes. If you're someone who enjoys a project, you want to get more into the nitty-gritty of painting, you want to sit down maybe for a couple of hours and work on one painting, this may be the medium for you to use. And again, the wash-up is simple. You can just, get a few brushes. You don't have to go expensive on the brushes. I've even used the goat hair brushes on these. I don't know what the long-term effects are on there. I do wash them with soap and water. And they seem to be fine, but I have a lot of those brushes laying around. And I'll also use these things called chip brushes. They sell them at the hardware store. They're like for varnishing, and they're very inexpensive. And you can actually just toss them if, once they're done and worn out. Adding a little grass just to kind of border off this little water here. So it's just little things. It's a little more delicate, the oil painting. It's a little more blendy, a little more the oil of it and kind of moving things around. And, it's one of those you either will like it or not like it. It may not be for you. I'm just kind of pulling down, almost creating a little shadowy effect or a little reflective effect over this pond. And here were those little details I was telling you about. Just making these look a little more like pine trees so they don't look like spires. A little bit of brown. You can get away with a little more with these because they are smaller. And I'm washing my brush, as you can see now. Now, I'm going back to this. You can see how this has not dried. And I'm actually taking my brush and I'm blending this upper area now. I want a little more light going out. It kind of looks a little weird with that little ceiling. And this is one of the advantages of the oil paint, is to be able to take the brush and just kind of blend and smooth things. Add a little bit of something, add a little bit of white. You can see it's coming together now. Obviously, you will use a little more paint than you would with watercolor. A little more titanium white up here, just kind of making this look more like a sky. If you start off small like this, it'll give you an opportunity to kind of get used to. I think whenever you start a new medium, start off a little smaller. When I started off doing watercolor, I think I started off 9 by 12. Even that's a little bit big. Until you get used to things, there's a lot of area to fill in, and it's a lot of pressure. And you can buy a pack of these 6 by 8 or 5 by 7 panels even. You can buy a big stack of them for a few bucks. Using the fan brush to make little grass lined up by that little water there. I'm going to change the angle here as we're getting close. Let's kind of just zoom in. I know I'm trying to show you everything with the brushes and the water and the, but now that we've seen that, let's just kind of get in here a little closer. I got a few little distant trees back there. Just trying to show the different layers and things. Use the top of the brush here to make some little branches for these trees. I like fan brushes. You can use the corner, you can use the side. And I put a little highlight in that water, as you can see now that we're close up. I'm not going to do a whole lot more. 20 minutes is about long enough, honestly, for a video. I've seen some that go, a couple of hours, and it's great to get that detail, but anything beyond that is you lose the spontaneity of it, and people will just tune out. And I just really want to give you some bits and pieces here. Really want you to pick up the brush and try for yourself and see how much fun it is. See just those little bits there. Put a little one there. I've got a bunch of these that I did in practicing because I'm new to this. It's not like watercolor. I've done it for a few years. I'm learning with you, and I wanted to kind of prepare so I could do a few videos on this. But this is the finished piece. I'm going to stop here. Here it is in a little digital frame. I think it looks pretty good. I hope you enjoyed this. I'll still be doing watercolor, but I'll come back with more of these.